History of Brunei. Published December the 9th, 2017. Special characters are denoted as follows. And. Left and right parentheses. An M dash. This article may require cleanup to meet Wikipedia's quality standards. The Sultanate of Brunei ruled during the 14th to the 19th century. Its territory allegedly covered the northern part of Borneo and the southern Philippines. European influence gradually brought an end to this regional power. Later, there was a brief war with Spain, in which Brunei was victorious. The decline of the Bruneian Empire culminated in the 19th century when Brunei lost much of its territory to the White Ridges of Sarawak, resulting in its current small landmass and separation into two parts. Brunei was a British protectorate from 1888 to 1984. Part 1. Before the Sultanate. The history of Brunei before the arrival of Magellan's ships is based mostly on speculation and the interpretation of Chinese sources and local legends. Historians believe that there was a forerunner to the present-day Brunei Sultanate. One possible predecessor state was called Vijayapura, which possibly existed in northwest Borneo in the 7th century. It was probably a subject state of the powerful Srivijaya Empire based in Sumatra. Another possible predecessor state was called Poni. Pinion, Boni. By the 10th century, Poni had contacts with first the Song dynasty and at some point even entered into a tributary relationship with China. By the 14th century, Poni also fell under the influence of the Javanese Majapahit Empire. The Book of Nagarakretagama, Canto 14, written by Prapanka in 1365, mentioned Berun as a vassal state of Majapahit. However, this may have been nothing more than a symbolic relationship, as one account of the annual tribute owed each year to Majapahit was a jar of areca juice obtained from the young green nuts of the areca palm. The Ming dynasty resumed communications with Poni in the 1370s, and the Poni ruler Mahanaji Chiana visited the Ming capital Nanjing in 1408 and died there. His tomb was rediscovered in the 20th century, and is now a protected monument. Part 2. Chinese settlement and the Kinabatangan. The greater part of the official historical record for early Brunei until the arrival of Pigafetta is based on legends and assumptions. The historical account, lacking any real evidence, has been constructed in such a way that around 1370, Zhu Yu and Zhang sent representatives to Brunei via Indonesia, and Brunei paid tribute to the Ming Chinese. This signified the strong influence of the Ming dynasty, and accounts for the combination of Ong Sumping's influence in Brunei. In these 30 years, the two main powers combined quickly. The Chinese expanded their influence from the east of the Kinabatangan River to northern Borneo. In 1402, after the death of Sultan Muhammad Shah, or known before converting to Islam, Awang Alak Betatar, his son Abdul Majid Hasan ascended the throne. Ong Sumping and Pengiran Temenggung became regents. Bruneian history has seldom treated Hasan as the second sultan. In 1406, after the death of Sultan Majid Hasan, there existed a 2-year power vacuum. During this 2 years, Bruneian nobles were locked in a power struggle. In the end, with the clever maneuvering of Ong Sumping, Sultan Ahmad came out victorious and Pengiran Temengung's faction lost. Ahmad thus became the second sultan in Bruneian official history. Sultan Ahmad was married to a sister of Ong Sumping. To further cement his influence on the new sultan, Ong Sumping advised the sultan that a visit to China, a regional Asian power at that time, was good. Thus, the new sultan sent Ong Sumping and several court officials as representatives to China to assure the new Ming dynasty of continued tributary relationship. Ong Sumping and his entourage landed on the coastal region of Fujian. Emperor Yongle had officials organized a welcome party for Ong Sumping. Advanced in age, Ong Sumping could not make the long journey back to Brunei, and died in Nanjing. Prior to his death, he had pleaded with Emperor Yongle to grant several wishes, among which 1. That Brunei continued to be a tributary kingdom. 2. Sungai Kina Batangan and the surrounding area, decades ago under the province of the Mongol Yuan dynasty of China, be re-annexed as Chinese territory. 3. That the highest mountain in the territory be named Kinabalu or New China, or alternatively some say Chinese Widow. Emperor Yongle granted his wish and further conferred upon Ong Sun Awang as the new ruler, and named the mountain of Brunei as Changning Mountain, mean Jabal al-Salam, Mountain of Peace, in Arabic. In 1408, Awang returned to Brunei under the escort of Chinese imperial eunuchs, officials and soldiers. Awang succeeded to the position of Ong Sumping in Brunei, and continued to exercise political power and influence upon the Sultan. The Chinese still referred to him as Chungping, General. In 1412, he paid tribute to Emperor Yongle. The wife of Ong Sumping was also buried in Brunei at a location which the local Malays called Bukit China. The sister of Ong Sumping, who was the wife of Sultan Ahmad, gave birth to a daughter. This daughter later inherited the throne and her consort became Sultan Sharif Ali. So he was Sayyidina, who came from the Arabian Peninsula. Sultan Sharif Ali was a descendant of Nabi Muhammad SAW. The granddaughter and the Arabian were the ancestors of today's Sultan of Brunei. Bruneians today still believe that Ong Sumping was an ancestor of the Brunei royalty, even though the Bruneian royal family stressed more on the concept of Melayu Islam Baraja, but they do not discount the Chinese connection. Ong Sumping's name was recorded under the genealogy of the Sultans of Brunei, in the capital of Brunei, Bandar Seri Begawan. Similar within Sanskrit, there exists a street named Jalan Ong Sumping, Arabic, and the Museum Brunei also contained artifacts of Ong Sumping. The tomb of Ong Sumping's son is also under the Bruneian government heritage protection. The historical Silsila Raja Raja Salu provide further evidence of Ong Sumping's existence. According to the record of the Silsila Raja Raja Salu, Ong Sumping arrived at Brunei with several Chinese soldiers on a commission to collect a certain precious jewel, called Gomala, in North Borneo, assumed to be on the highest mountain and said to be guarded by a dragon. Ong Sumping and his men later landed on the eastern coast of North Borneo. The Chinese explorers knew from vast experience that to reach a high mountain they had to logically start from the big river mouth and move ever upwards to the source of the river. Ong Sumping set up a staging station on the Kina Batangan River and sent men upriver. Unfortunately, the source of the Kina Batangan River is not on Mount Kinabalu. After the demise of Ong Sumping, Awang, the new Raja of Kina Batangan, sent an expedition, this time up the Labak River. It only managed to set up another staging station at the confluence of the Liwagu Kojabangan and Liwagu Kawasan. Part 3. The Nunuk Regang Connection. Among Ong Sumping's men were native Formosan porters and soldiers, tribespeople of Taiwan. Under the Ming Dynasty rule, soldiers were prohibited from bringing along their wives and family on long overseas campaign. Most of Ong Sumping's men married local natives, and their children became ancestors of today's Kadar Zendusan, who started the staging station Longhouse, later to become the settlement at Nunuk Regang. In 1411, 36 years after Ong Sumping's arrival, the soldiers and porters sent by Awang, the son of Ong Sumping, moved up the correct river, Labak. Arriving at the confluence of the two rivers, Liwagu Kojabangan, Left Fork, and Liwagu Kawasan, Right Fork, a staging station was established for the final assault up the mountain summit to take the jewel purportedly guarded by a dragon. Exploratory scouts were sent up each fork of the river to ascertain the sources. The left fork had its source on Mount Trusmadi Range and the right fork on Mount Kinabalu. Later this staging station became the permanent settlement now known as Nunuk Regang, the original home of the Kadar Zendusan race. At the staging station, the Chinese hung red-colored pieces of fabric and red-colored banner to indicate their presence to any follow-up parties. Red is an important symbolic color in Chinese culture, and even today whenever the Chinese set up a new project such as land development, they never neglect to set up a red-colored altar and offer sacrifice. There is no zoological record of a red-colored banyan tree, so it can only be assumed that to the simple native mind the banyan tree has turned red, hence the name Nunuk Regang. The offspring of the soldiers, porters and local natives women became the ancestors of the Kadar Zendusan race. This explained the reason behind the many similarities in language between the natives of Taiwan and the Kadar Zendusan language. The ethnic Tagars, warlike and aggressive, claim they are the descendants of soldiers. Additionally, the local native women were themselves descendants of previous waves of migrations of Austronesian people from mainland China and Taiwan to Sahul, and also during the Mongol Empire Yuan dynasty under Kublai Khan in 1292, during which Sulu and northern Borneo became a province under the Mongol Empire. When, on a visit to China with the Sultan of Brunei in 1408, Ong Sumping died, his son, Wang, returned as the new Raja of Kina Baitangan 3 years later. Meanwhile, the settlement at Nunuk Regang had already been well established and thriving. The new Raja, having converted to Islam, was no longer interested in jewel and dragon, but more concerned with court affairs, having been appointed an important advisor to the Brunei Sultanate. Trading in the abundant resources at Kina Baitangan became his most primary concern, and the men at Nunuk Regang was abandoned and left to fend for themselves. According to this record, Ong Sumping didn't become Sultan, but his daughter was married to the Sultan, and he became the Sultan's father-in-law. Bruneian royal houses adopted the maternal succession system. It is known for certain that his maternal granddaughter became the Queen of Sultan Sharif Ali. However, it is believed that the year might be in 1375, not in the Yuan dynasty, but in the 8th year of Emperor Hongwu. Part 4. Conversion to Islam and the Golden Age. The later history of Poni, or Borneo, remains somewhat obscure. By the middle of the 15th century, Poni had entered into a close relationship with the Muslim kingdom of Malacca. This era also saw the origin of the ruling dynasty, which continues to this day. According to the Seria Wang Semaun, also spelled Simon, Brunei's national epic poem, the present-day Sultanate originated when Dua Imaz Khayangan descended to earth from heaven in an egg. He had children with a number of aboriginal maidens, and one of these children converted to Islam and became the first Sultan. However, the state continued to be multicultural. The second Sultan was either Chinese or married a Chinese woman. The third Sultan was said to be part Arab, who are seen in South and Southeast Asia as the descendants of Muhammad. The Sultanate oversaw a gradual expansion of the state's influence and borders. This was accelerated with the conquest of Malacca by Portugal in 1511. Brunei benefited from the scattering of Muslim merchants and traders who were forced to use other ports. These merchants probably also helped to speed the conversion of the general population to Islam. The Sultanate was a thalassocracy, a realm based on controlling trade rather than land. Situated in a strategic location between China and the trading networks of Southeast Asia, the state served as an entrepot and collected tolls on water traffic. The society was hierarchical, with the Sultan serving as despot. His powers were limited, however, by a council of princes of royal blood. One of the council's duties was to arrange for royal succession. The reign of the fifth Sultan, Bolkiah, 1485 to 1521, is often described as Brunei's Golden Age. The Sultanate's control extended probably over the coastal regions of modern-day Sarawak and Sabah, the Sulu archipelago, and the islands off the northwest tip of Borneo. The Sultanate's influence also spread north into the Philippines, where colonies were planted in Manila. The Sultan also visited Java and Malacca. At the end of Bolkiah's reign, in 1521, the first Europeans visited Brunei when Ferdinand Magellan's expedition arrived at the port. Antonio Pigafetta, a navigator on the trip, described an amazing city. The Europeans rode to visit the Sultan on top of elephants, capparis and in silk cloth. The inhabitants of the palace had their loins covered with gold-embroidered cloth and silk, wore poniards with golden hilts, ornamented with pearls and precious stones, and had many rings on their fingers. The visitors were served meals on porcelain dishes. Pigafetta described a city of 25,000 families living in wooden houses built on stilts to raise them above the water. At high tide, women would ride in boats selling merchandise. The Sultan's palace was surrounded by brick ramparts and protected by numerous brass and iron cannons. This prosperous era continued through the reign of the ninth Sultan, Hassan, who is credited with developing an elaborate royal court structure, elements of which remain today. Part 5. Relations with Europeans. Brunei's relations varied with the different European powers in the region. The Portuguese, for the most part, were more interested in economic and trading relations with the regional powers and did little to interfere with Brunei's development. This does not mean that relations were always cordial, such as in 1536 when the Portuguese attacked the Muslims in the Moluccas and the ambassador to the Brunei court had to leave because of the Sultan's hostility. The Portuguese also noted that the Sultanate was heavily involved in the region's politics and wars, and that Brunei merchants could be found in Legar and Siam. Relations with Spain were far more hostile. From 1565 on, Spanish and Brunei forces engaged in a number of naval skirmishes, and in 1571 the Spanish succeeded in capturing Manila from the Brunei aristocracy that had been established there. Brunei raised several large fleets with the intention of recapturing the city, but the campaigns, for various reasons, never launched. In 1578, the Spanish took Sulu and in April attacked and captured Brunei itself, after demanding that the Sultan cease proselytizing in the Philippines and, in turn, allow Christian missionaries to be active in his kingdom. The Spaniards withdrew after suffering heavy losses due to a cholera or dysentery outbreak. They were so weakened by the illness that they decided to abandon Brunei to return to Manila on the 26th of June 1578, after just 72 days. The short-term damage to the Sultanate was minimal, as Sulu regained its independence soon after. However, Brunei failed to regain a foothold in Luzon, with the island firmly in Spanish hands. The long-term effects of regional changes could not be avoided. After Sultan Hassan, Brunei entered a period of decline, due to internal battles over royal succession as well as the rising influences of European colonial powers in the region that, among other things, disrupted traditional trading patterns, destroying the economic base of Brunei and many other Southeast Asian sultanates. During Sultan Omar Ali Saifuddin II's reign, disturbances occurred in Sarawak. In 1839, the British adventurer James Brooke arrived in Borneo and helped the Sultan put down this rebellion. As a reward, he became governor and later White Raja of Sarawak and gradually expanded the territory under his control. Brooke never gained control of Brunei, though he did attempt to. He asked the British to check whether or not it would be acceptable for him to claim Brunei as his own. However, they came back with bad news. Although Brunei was poorly governed, it had a definite sense of national identity and could therefore not be absorbed by Brooke. In 1843 an open conflict between Brooke and the Sultan ended in the latter's defeat. The Sultan recognized Sarawak's independence. In 1846, Brunei town was attacked and captured by the British and Sultan Saifuddin II was forced to sign a treaty to end the British occupation of Brunei town. In the same year, Sultan Saifuddin II ceded Labuan to the British under the Treaty of Labuan. In 1847, he signed the Treaty of Friendship and Commerce with the British and in 1850, he signed a similar treaty with the United States. Over the years, the Sultans of Brunei ceded further stretches of territory to Sarawak. In 1877, stretches to the east of the capital were leased. Later ceded to the British North Borneo Chartered Company. North Borneo This recording is a derivative work from Wikipedia. For more information, please visit www.frogcast.org.